What's going on, everyone? Welcome into an episode of Bourbon and Bullshit. Today, I am actually joined from across the United States. I don't know where the hell Tulsa is, but with a friend of mine, and actually, he is a multifaceted gentleman. He is he's a former lawyer, an author, co-host of a podcast, stand-up comedian, and can write a resume to get you into whatever role you're looking for. Adam Avitable, how are you, my friend?
Doing pretty good, G. How you doing?
Can't complain, man. Can't complain. You are one of the few people who would be calling me G on this podcast. Some people on here would be like, "Who is G?" That is my nickname.
Oh, yeah.
Friends
Yeah, nobody knows that on this, do they?
Oh, only like the inner circle. So it's all good. It doesn't bother me at all. I actually rather people call me G, but people get weird about that, especially in the corporate world. They just call me one letter.
Just one letter. Yeah. I mean, I think it immediately sets you apart, though. People are like, oh, that's G. Like it works.
It does. We actually, so I work in an interesting field. We'll talk about it offline, but Arthur fits more. But when you tell people, oh, they just call me G, they're like, oh, that makes a lot more sense than your real name.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
But how's everything going, man? You are in Tulsa?
Tulsa, Oklahoma. Yeah, Oklahoma's in the middle of the country, pretty much. Just it's Texas's hat, basically.
And well, before we started, you said, how cold was it today?
It was 7 degrees last night, and today it's 11. So it's not usually like this cold, but it'll go through cold like periods like this, and the wind is incredible. Like it brings it down to like negative degrees.
Shit, that's wild. I mean, it makes for beautiful scenery. I know that you also we're going to get into it a little bit more about the images and pictures that you took recently, and some really cool story that you just told me. But just real brief, we want to just do a quick drink of the day. It's featuring a really cool cocktail. It's a Kingston Negroni. For all those cocktail nerds who are on here, this just one features Smith and Cross Jamaican rum. It's equal parts. I like everything simple in life. Just 1-1-1. Smith and Cross Jamaican rum, pot still rum, Campari, and sweet vermouth. That's it. Spin that around, drink that. It's fucking amazing. For those who are at home trying to make it, I will be featuring on the socials for everyone to get to uplift your cocktail game, because I'm not a bartender, but I do get tired of drinking the exact same three things over and over and over. So I think when older I get, the more I want to try shit. What about you?
I'm kind of a creature of habit. I realized the other day that I basically drink during the day. I don't drink coffee, so I start with water in the morning, and then when I have lunch, I usually have like a Coke Zero, and then when I'm working, if I work at night, I'm usually just drinking like a Mountain Dew Zero for the caffeine. But when I go out, I usually have vodka Red Bull, and that's all I'll drink. I'm like, yeah, and that's it. Those are the only things I drink, and I don't drink. I don't do anything else.
Really?
Yeah.
I feel like you were the one I heard this from. There was a shot that you ordered one time at Ale House called the Smoker's Cough.
The smoker's cough. Yeah.
And we did that on the show
Oh,
because
did you?
yes,
It was awful, right? It is. It is.
I did not do it. My friend did
Oh,
it.
oh, you didn't do it. You didn't. You weren't going to try it. Okay.
No, absolutely not. But he said, I'll do it. I fuck with it. Where did that start? And
So, when I lived in Orlando, I would go to the Altamont Ale House a lot.
yeah,
In fact, to the point that was where I took all my first dates to. But that was just my go-to place because it was open till 2. They would serve their full menu until 2, so you could go like after you went out for the night, you go get some food and like that. But also the drinks were cheap. I knew the bartenders. I didn't drink vodka Red Bull there. I drank their coconut rum and Diet Coke was my drink there. But there was another regular who was sitting at the outside bar all the time, and he and I would just became kind of buds. And he would every now and then just send over a shot because he was just in one of those moods and just like, hey, you want to do a shot? And I was sure. And so then I decided to try to find weird shots to start doing with him and just to kind of fuck with him basically. And so one of them was called the Smoker's Cough. And if I remember correctly, it was like Jaeger with like a drizzle of mayonnaise in it.
mhm.
And I think that might have been the extent of the shot. I think it's pretty simple. I don't think there was much else.
That's 100% it. That's all it is.
Yeah.
It's just Jaeger and
Yeah.
mayo.
Yeah. And so I asked the bartender to do it. So she went and got mayo and actually made us do the shots. We recorded it and everything. And, it was pretty popular little video there because it was awful. Because Jaeger by itself, but then the mayonnaise just added this weird like texture to it and everything. Yeah. I can't remember the other. There was another one that was like vanilla vodka with black pepper and something else. Yeah, that was another hard one to do too. So I started just trying to find the weirdest ones I could find for us to do late night when we were both kind of already buzzed.
Was that the weirdest one you had, or were there others that stood out? Just out of curiosity, this is
I
not.
think the smoker's cough was by far the weirdest one. I don't think I ever did anything that ended up being any yeah anything weirder than that because that's pretty crazy.
That's a fun little camaraderie to build. It's, hey, you're always here. You want to drink together and just turn into
Yeah,
a
basically, that's what I found a lot as I travel around the country and go to dive bars, and a lot of times when I'm by myself, is that when you're there, you just kind of end up sometimes talking to people and making temporary friends.
I like that. It's just funny that you bring it up. We had a conversation. I had a conversation with a good friend of mine recently. Like, I like going to bars by myself. I'm
Yeah,
not the person who's afraid to go to a movie by himself.
yeah,
Actually,
I love that.
there's a part of me that kind of prefers going to the bars by myself because I'm no longer forced to make small talk. I could just hang out,
Yep.
eat, write, whatever the hell I want, and just chill. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm a social creature, but there's times I'm just, I'm gonna go over here for like 2 hours in silence. Well, like silence, because you're surrounded by noise, but you're not really. I could zone that out and move on.
Yeah. I'm the same. I'm in the same way. Like actually going to the movies by myself. I try to go maybe every week or every other week. I just take out in the middle of the day, and I'll just go when there's nobody else there. And I love going. I love doing that. It's like my happy little place to go have watch a big movie, and with nobody else around. But bars, yeah, I love going to a bar when there's like I don't know anybody, or when I know the bartender a lot of times. When I'm traveling, but I won't know them. But like here, I'll go by myself. I won't tell my friends I'm going. I'm just gonna go hang out at the bar and chill.
Yeah, that's happened to me in the past. Where I've gone, I've just been at a bar. My friend Papa was like, "Why didn't you tell us you were coming out?" I was like, because I didn't want to go out with you. Uh,
Right.
well, we're here now, so hey, not like I was avoiding you. I just wanted to go by myself. But that's cool.
Exactly. That makes sense.
And in those travels too, because I know you've bounced around and did a lot of things. I think that also kind of builds that into you, where you're also just very comfortable and confident walking into a bar, do your own thing, mind your
Yep.
business, and not feeling like I don't have to make a friend before I go to a bar, whatever.
Right. Exactly.
So I did try to think of this, right? So I know that I've known you for probably 10 years, at least. No,
Well,
we
yeah.
love each other or have been around each other for our origin story is probably like 10, 11 years. I just don't know where I met you.
You don't remember.
No, but I remember that we're good friends and I like you. I liked you a lot. I was like, I don't know where I met Adam, but I really have always enjoyed him. I
The origin's really funny. Just I moved to Florida from LA when I was married, and it was in like 2004, and then got divorced in 2009. And so in the beginning of 2010 was kind of on my own, and lived down the street from the Walgreens you worked at.
that's what I was trying to remember. I was like, I saw him all the time at Walgreens.
But I,
Like,
I wasn't like doing. I would do like this weird little grocery shopping just to get some small stuff at that Walgreens constantly. And so with that, kind of made friends with Lainey.
there he goes. Yeah.
And so she and I would start talking. So then every now and then we'd just go out to lunch and stuff like that. And then from there, kind of got to know Slavana. And then from there, like you, because then I would kind of go to whatever, there'd be parties and stuff like that and random occurrences. And
Mhm.
and then when she moved to the other store, I would come by and grab her for lunch sometimes. Because then she moved in with me. Lainey moved in with me to live with me. She needed a place to live, and so
Mhm.
then she was living there. And so then I think I had parties at my house. I think you might have come to at least one of them.
I might have come to at least one. I knew
Yeah,
for a fact that it was through Laney, but I
yeah.
didn't know, like, was it outside? Like, was it during while she was working for me or with me or whatever, or was it after that when she became part of the bigger group of that friends of that circle?
Yeah, I just randomly became friends with her just because I went there so much, and we just kind of started every now and then I'd say hi and chat, and then one time we just kind of grabbed lunch because we happened to have lunch at the same time. It's just one of those things, and then it's weird to sometimes think that I became friends with my random Walgreens employee, that I saw, but that's kind of neat when that type of thing happens.
It really is. It's funny where you end up meeting people, becoming friends, and like you just see people grow and go through life a lot. So one of the things I briefly mentioned, part of the reason that this is the second podcast you've been on of mine was
Yeah,
you were on FFN and
yep,
Full Frontal Nerdy Show for anyone who didn't come over from there, and you were you are still the co-host of a show called Dating Kind of Sucks,
yep.
which is a really brilliant idea. But do you mind telling our listeners a little bit about that and like what brought that up?
Well, so yeah, dating kind of sucks came from and to tell people if they're looking for it, it's dating kinda sucks, not kind of, just one of those weird little things.
Mhm.
Um, but it came up from I had just was doing stand up and was taking a break from stand up for a little bit. Was looking for like a new creative thing to do,
Yeah.
and happened to I was speaking at a social media conference in Florida, and one of the people that was in my little seminar I was giving on like how to use Twitter and how to edit and in your writing and everything.
Mhm.
She had a blog called Dating Kind of Sucks, and I was reading it. I really enjoyed her stuff, and I asked to like guest post on her blog one time, and she said, "Yeah." When we started kind of just chatting, just online, we never actually met, even though she was in my little seminar that I was teaching at the conference. She was there, and then I didn't actually talk to her. Then I saw her afterwards because she tweeted at me or something. We started becoming friends and just randomly became friends. We'd share like terrible dating stories. She had moved to Nashville, and at one point, I think I was drunk one night, and she had just posted a like Snapchat story about a terrible date she went on. I was drunk at a bar, and I messaged her. I was like, "We should start a podcast." And she's like, "I love the idea." So then, like when we were both sober, we had an actual phone call to talk for the first time, actually, and saw if we could connect. And then we decided, let's do it. And we decided to name it after her blog because it was such a catchy name.
Yeah. That's awesome.
That was Yeah, that was 2017 is when we started that.
And that blew up, right? Like you ended up building a pretty solid
Yeah.
community and everything.
Yeah, we broke 1 million downloads a couple of years ago. We've kind of slowed down this last couple of years. She got in a relationship. She's been in a relationship for the last 3 years,
Mhm.
so it's a little harder to talk about dating. And then I've just been busy with a lot of other projects. I've got back into doing stand up again, and I'm working on my third book and some other. And I was traveling around the country, so we slowed down a bit. But like it is something we still both love, and we built a great community of people from it too.
Yeah, that's one of the things that really stood out. Well, I think that sets your brand apart from a lot of I'll see these podcasts and all this, and I see a lot of successes because they build a big community. But what's different from your community as opposed to like all the true horror podcasts and the true crime and all that is you also built kind of a little bit of like a support group where people who are going through these like poor dating situations and all that, right?
Yeah, the idea of the podcast was to kind of let people know, hey, like you're not alone. There's a lot of things that you can do if you might be in a bad situation too. Like you should be aware of it because a lot of people are not aware. That's one thing that I found both through the podcast and like subsequently being on TikTok and creating content that's very similar. Was that sometimes I would talk about something and then I would have people message me privately and say, I never realized that was abusive or that was toxic until you said that. And then I realized that's happening to me too, or I saw someone else going through it. So part of our marketing for the podcast, and I think you guys followed us at FFN because of this, was we created a Facebook group
Mhm.
for the podcast. I don't think you guys had one until or maybe we had
Oh, no,
one.
we had one, but it was like obviously different niches.
Different area, but anyways, I knew that I knew that a couple of podcasts started when they saw that we created just a Facebook group for the podcast
Mhm.
to create a community of people who can talk about the podcast, but also it promotes it. It allows us to market to people who are part of the group. So it was a good way to market using Facebook. And so we created that with this idea of let's create this community. Let's be very strict on who we let in. I'm pretty harsh as far as who I allow to be in there, and if anyone steps out of line, I boot them immediately. And then let people share their stories and feel like they can share safely without being attacked.
Yeah, and I commend you on that because you were unwilling to compromise for the sake of numbers, which was
Yeah,
a very good thing, and I commend that because there's I call it the panda bear, someone who's pandering to the numbers in the audience and making I want to appease everyone. You
yeah,
can't, you can't, and you drew a hard line on a lot of the things, and I remember multiple times seeing people say some out of pocket shit. And immediately Adam was like, nah, not here, not here,
yeah,
bud. Like, get the fuck out. And it
yeah,
was instant where I've seen some people like, hey, well, they're a supporter. So the camera's in and out. They're a
yeah,
supporter. They're Patreon. They throw this and they throw this. And you're like, I don't give a fuck. You're not
yeah,
gonna do that here. No, not in my house. And I love that because there are a couple times hell in FFN. I've booted people hell. We're not doing this today. Not today, Satan, to the point where I became almost like the bad guy, which I'm fine with. I could be your villain. I could be your villain, but we're not doing that shit in my house. Like, you can stay in this group, but I'm gonna check you the whole fucking time, and
right.
you can stay here just to get trolled. Shout out to Savannah for always helping troll. Like,
Yes, yes. Um, yeah, I think it's one of those things that, yeah, because I think we've got like, I don't know, 2,500, 3,000 people somewhere in that range. And I stopped counting a while ago, but I know, yeah, we could have 100,000 in there if I was just like, it's all about dating and dating memes and trash people with dating app photos, like that, or that kind of environment, and just let anybody all let it go kind of free for all. Yeah, it could blow up, but that doesn't benefit what we want. We want, like, what I liked about what I like about our podcast and what about our community is that they're very loyal people because they appreciate the actual content. They know that it's all about transparency and honesty and integrity, and that needs to perpetuate throughout everything that we do.
Yeah, quality versus quantity
Yep.
at all times. And I will be the first to tell you, I even saw people saying, "Hey, look, I'm having trouble with the dating sites. Can someone please give me honest feedback?" And not to be, and you would almost always, they would say it, but you would almost always, "Hey, we're not here to be mean to each other. So please make sure whatever the hell you communicate is respectful." I'm just like,
Yes.
I better be nice. Like,
Yep, and people were usually very constructive, and then they
yeah,
they could be very helpful. And if someone's getting a little too spicy, I'll tell them to, hey, let's tone down the language. Be nice. Let's be a
yeah,
little supportive.
yeah. And I thought that was something that stood out. We did that well at FFN because there were three of us.
Yeah.
But so there was always some kind of watchdog, right? There was always like
Right.
round the clock watching. But it felt like you and your partner with two alone, tough. But a good amount of time, nothing against your co-host, but I always saw Adam. Hey,
Oh, it's just me. She actually doesn't even have Facebook
oh,
anymore.
okay. So I was like, I always saw you. I'm like, oh, she doesn't, but all only saw you. Like, hey, what's up? Don't do that.
Yeah.
You can't do this in this house. So tough and always vigilant, man. So I commend you on that. So there was a couple of those, like I remember a post where a guy was like, "Hey, look, I think I look from," like he was kind of self negative talking himself, and said, "I don't know which pictures to put up." And straight up, it was a space where he was, "Hey, well, try this angle. We'll try something that looks," and it was all very helpful.
Yeah.
No one was rude. There was like 25 comments. I was like, "I like this picture. You should really keep that in. But what about this?" And it was like someone trying to help you pick an outfit. And I was like, I actually really enjoy this. I enjoy the fact that this is happening in real time where like, hey, look, I'm going through the same shit. I'm telling you what I'm looking for and what I would see. It's like, oh, I like that. I like the whole community. So big
I'm
ups for
glad.
that. Yeah.
I'm glad, and it's because it's more about dating too. I mean, I'm more than just dating. It's about communication. It's about relationships. Like I think we found that people who are even in relationships have benefited sometimes from some of the stuff we've talked about because we talk about how to handle arguments, how to handle like if you disagree on certain things, how to when to step back, when to be the bigger person, and like a lot of that, and the type of transparency and communication you need, whether or not you're dating or just in your real life, like friendships and those types of relationships as well. So that is a nice thing is it's not just for people who are single and dating. It's for basically I would say anybody who just wants to, make sure that they're putting their best foot forward as a person.
Yeah. And I think you should always be constantly growing and working towards building a better relationship, right? You could,
Yeah, oh, yeah,
you have what appears like the best relationship in the world. We grow, we change, the world evolves. Even if we're not moving, the world's moving around us. It's better to be kind of aware of where those dynamics lay. Like who I am in my 20s isn't who I'm going to be in my 40s.
oh yeah,
So keeping that in mind and always working towards maintaining that relationship. But I'm a big proprietor of relationships at work, right? Anything worth doing, you have to work at it constantly.
yep,
I want my relationship to last until I'm 100. I don't think I'll live that long. I'm Hispanic and have high blood pressure, and how I drink. But
right,
but the point still lies that I want to make sure that I'm putting that effort in, and I want my partner to do the same. There have been times that you have posted something on your page that's led to solid conversations or interesting. Hey, what? I remember even asking my fiance, like, "What did you think of my pictures when you first?" Because we met on a dating site, and she said I looked scary. What? So she swiped no the first time she saw it, and as I like she as I didn't know that. Long story short, I didn't know it was a dating site. I just thought it was like people post like it's a social network site or something, and it was called
what?
Hot or Not. And I was like,
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't know. It was a little bit of both, but yeah, yeah.
yeah, I thought it was just a social network. And I was bored. I was reading,
Boy,
listening to.
you're old.
Yeah, I'm
You guys
40.
met on Hot or Not? Like that's
Yeah, we're together almost 11 years. But I was watching Vines and it mentioned Hot or Not app, and Vines were like the fucking crazy. Yeah, that's how
just
old.
keep dating
Aging
yourself.
myself.
Should
Why
we
do you
talk
say
about
words?
MySpace and Friendster a little bit too?
Listen, man, we're not going to talk about. No, but it's true though. Like that's how old
Yeah.
I am. That's how like I never got into Tinder. So all you motherfuckers are out there like, oh, Tinder's hard. I didn't have Tinder. I had to go in real life and talk to people. I didn't have that. But nothing against convenience, obviously. But we met on Hot or Not, and I didn't realize. I thought it was just whatever. People just post pictures in social network, and I posted new pictures of myself. And afterwards, she said the second round of pictures was like, oh, okay, he's cute. Like he doesn't look scary and big and intimidating. I was like, I'm not a scary dude, but like, what are you talking about? Well, all that to say, like, I thought about that is the idea of the guy asking for profile picture advice, and he got into that conversation about everyone's gonna write the same profile. I'm adventurous, blah 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 blah. Like you have to do something to stand out a little bit.
Yep.
It's a cookie cutter, and it was a cool conversation. But I do think that the show is you said it did slow down, but there you guys blew up, evolved, and highlighted and changed. And to your point, when someone's in a committed relationship, it's tough to talk about dating sucks.
Yeah.
How did you pivot to at least keep that fresh and relevant?
Well, so we pivoted to, I mean, there's plenty of other social issues that we could talk about. Pivoted to maybe discussing issues affecting women at large instead of just women in dating. And then my co-host Sarah, she travels a lot and she does it on her own, which is kind of cool. Even like her boyfriend will just stay home, but she'll go to like, I think she went to like Romania for 3 weeks, and she just went to, Thailand for 10 days by herself, and she'll just go and just do these trips and she can work from home wherever.
Mhm.
And he really can't, or he doesn't really necessarily want to, so she just goes and does these things. And so she started doing more travel content too, talking about different places to visit and stuff like that, which I feel like there's a relevance to talk about all those types of things anyways, because hey, where do you want to go? Like we can be a resource for people who want to go travel somewhere too.
Mhm.
For a while, we were interviewing people too. We were doing interviews every other episode, and that was exhausting just logistically to try to get with two of us interviewing, and we're both remote, and then we're trying to kind of give each other signals so we're not talking over each other, and so she knows when to say something, and I know when to say. So it just ended up I think we did like probably like 8 or 9 of those, and finally I was just like we can't keep doing this. It was too much.
Understood. Yeah. We've joked. I've had friends that are like, "Hey, man, I want to be a regular on the show. I would love to," but it's tough logistically to work that out all times.
Yeah,
So, and I think from the outside looking in, it seems simple.
yeah,
You have probably had a lot. You've had obviously a lot of experience knowing when
yeah.
someone's about to speak, and you know all that. Yeah, it's tough. So for those
It
of you
is. It
listening at
is.
home thinking about starting a podcast with your homies and just rattling on, editing is going to suck.
Yeah. The best decision I ever made was to hire an editor. So even now, I have a friend that I basically send the files to, and she edits it all down for us and takes care of it all.
Holy shit.
Um, yeah, it was someone I found on through Reddit, I think, or something like that. And yeah, she actually ended up becoming a listener of the podcast because she liked the content, and that's kind of cool. She was like, "Oh, I love this topic this week" or whatever. So it was kind of nice to have an editor who was involved.
My editor is a dick.
It's you, right?
Yes, it is. All of this is me. all, of this, all of this is me. Before we go on a quick break, I was just curious because you built this community, you did all this. Has that community ever led to people finding love and like finding a relationship out of it, or is that not something you've gotten yet? Because I assume with all these people looking for love and posting everything they are looking for,
So we've actually explicitly discouraged that
really?
because
Okay.
we want people to feel like it's a space where they can be honest about things they're worried about, honest about their lives and things like that, and not trying to do it to try to impress someone else in the group. So like actually DMing other members without asking their permission publicly is prohibited. It's a bannable offense.
Okay.
So it's one of those things, and I will say that the community that I've grown is 95% women. So there's not a lot of men in there.
Hmm.
So if someone wants to like is interested in someone and we're like actually genuinely wanted to talk to them, then they might come to me and say, "Hey, do you care? Do you mind if I DM this person?" I'll be like, "You have to ask them specifically." But we just didn't want people to ever get into a place where I don't know, where it would make things awkward. We did have occasionally we'd have someone that was already in the group, and then one of their exes tried to join the group or join the group, and I didn't know it was an ex because I didn't know them personally.
Hmm.
And later on, they'd message me be like, "Hey, I just realized my ex is in this group, and now I feel really uncomfortable trying to talk about things. What can we do?" And so then I'll just bounce the ex and be like, "Oh, you were here first."
I actually like all of that. That all makes a
Yeah,
lot of sense because it shouldn't turn into like a dating site. That's what would be a slippery slope. If you're looking for a safe space where you can talk about and you're not trying to impress anyone and not trying to be judged by anyone, I don't want who could be a potential partner being in that chat because I'm not going to be as open. So,
Right. It's like therapy. I mean, unless you don't want to try to fuck your therapist. That's what my therapist told me, at least.
Yeah, mine was less receptive. I mean, nothing. Like, but no, I think that makes a no. I think now what you said out loud, that makes a lot of sense. There shouldn't be a window for someone to find the
Yeah.
next like significant other in there, because that's not what the purpose in the page is. That's why you go on those like Tinders or Plenty of Fishes or whatever. I don't know, Adam. What's the new stuff? Because you say I'm aging myself. What's the new dating site?
Tinder's still popular, but there's Bumble and Hinge.
No, no, no.
Those are pretty good. There's a lot now of specific ones for people who participate in or find themselves to be a little more alternative. One that like Tiny, that's more for the kind of LGBTQ community. Her, which is for lesbians. So there's a lot of different ones like that. There's Grinder, where I know you're on that one, so you already know that.
The proximity thing is weird on that one because it doesn't always figure out exactly
it's
right.
like it's like I'm next to you, I'm behind you, I'm inside you. But yeah, so it's
Real
definitely
time, just real time updates. It's
yeah, real time. But no, so there are a lot of different options now, but the as the mainstays are still Tinder, Bumble, and Hinge right now.
yeah. I had a good friend of mine. He used to use Bumble all the time because he was traveling and he was working in Idaho. He was doing stuff out there, and he's like, yeah, it's just wild because you one thing he vented about was that people would kind of portray themselves in one light, and then when he actually meets them, has a conversation with them, does all this, it's not what their profile was. And he was finding that happen more often with Bumble than others, but I'm not here to judge either one. Maybe it was just his luck. So I remember just those kind of horror stories. The unfortunate thing is, not unfortunate, very fortunate, sweetheart, if you're listening, very fortunate. I never got to know these dating websites before. You're like, what do you mean unfortunate?
What do you mean
What do
unfortunate?
you mean unfortunate? So I never ever got to know any of these. So almost everything I hear is secondhand, and barely do you ever hear people cry from the mountaintops, the success stories. More often you hear the failures.
Yeah, people complain more than it's like anything. Like when I go to a restaurant, if I have a good experience, I try to make sure that I compliment and to let the manager know, because I know most people complain and they very rarely will take the time to leave a public compliment or like something like that. So same type of concept.
Every goddamn time.
Yeah.
Guys, we'll take a quick break. When we get back, we're going to get to know Adam a little bit more and about some of the other endeavors that he has, just explored throughout. I completely forgot that you haven't heard the show yet. And that's a real commercial I run every week.
I like that. That's great. Yeah. And what's funny is that the Amazon one-click thing, I was just talking about that. Actually, I don't know if you saw my post on Facebook recently where
No.
I was drunk and I got an order confirmation like the next day, or a shipment confirmation like a couple days later, and I didn't remember what I was, when I looked, for some reason I ordered Billie Eilish's perfume.
Billie Eilish makes a perfect. Wait, Adam.
Apparently.
for you? You just want.
I was like, it sounded cool. I was like, I love Billie Eilish's music, and so I was
Billie.
drunk at the bar, probably just chilling by myself, and saw an ad for it, and I was like, I'll buy that. Yeah, and it also reminded me of like several years earlier where I was when I was in Florida, I got a package that delivered from Amazon. Now, I occasionally get gifts because my address is public a lot of times to my audience and stuff like that, and people will sometimes see something and they'll just randomly send it to me because they think of me. Usually bacon related or mayonnaise related, typically, but.
Which is fair.
Anyways, this was a waffle iron. It was like the one that like flips and everything like that. And I was like, oh, this is amazing. I've wanted one of these. I couldn't find any like name on it. It just had my name on it. So I was like, what is. And then as I started to think about it, I went into my order history and I realized I ordered it for myself at like 2 a.m. from Ale House. Like and then I was talking to the friend I was with. She goes, yeah, don't you remember we were talking about waffles? You're like, oh, I want waffles. I was like, oh, I just ordered myself a waffle maker, and I did not remember that at all. So drunk shopping is definitely something I've done.
Drunk me and sober me do not have the same budget, and I have
Oh,
a lot of
yeah.
concerns. I have a lot of concerns. It feels like drunk me is just like, oh, fuck it, you only live once. Sober me's trying to retire. Like,
Right.
relax. No, but yeah, the don't text your ex is one of the one of the
Oh,
things
that was good too. Yeah, that's always, yeah.
bro, because I remember like drunken nights getting the you up text. I was like, no, leave me alone. Do not text me. Or me being drunken, like, hey, what you doing? No, young
Yeah.
me, different man.
Yeah.
Well over 10 years ago, Rosanna. Don't worry about it. So I know that we talked about dating and all these things, and throughout this time, you probably like learned about all these random fucking trends and all these things that I've heard about. Like we all know about ghosting. Recently, I learned about shit like breadcrumbing and these toxic habits that happen during dating, which once again, been fortunate enough, and this is weird, but I don't know a lot of these trends. Like, what's the most like what weird trends or whatever's going on in dating nowadays that you're like, wow, problematic or weird?
Well, yeah, the breadcrumbing is definitely, one. And if you don't know what that is, then it's when people like they kind of ghost, but they stay connected on social media and they'll like your story or they'll watch your story on Instagram, stuff like that, but they won't actually reach out. And so it happens as sometimes, and it's ridiculous. But I think that things like that could be easily avoided if people were maybe a little more stringent with their boundaries before they got to know somebody.
Mhm.
Like, don't add them on your Instagram. Don't let them know your social media handles. Like, maybe have the safety of just having them meet you in public and go out, and that's it. Give it a little bit of time before you start reaching that point, and maybe you'll find out what kind of person they are. You'll see other red flags. But yeah, I mean, and ghosting is one of the things that I understand. It's got both a negative connotation and also it makes sense. I think it's negative when men ghost women. If
Mhm.
you don't want to see a woman again, tell her. Just be an adult and tell her. But if you're a woman who doesn't necessarily want to tell a man that because you're afraid, then I understand ghosting. And it is a double standard, but it's an understandable double standard. And I have seen firsthand from so many listeners and people the text messages that men will send women when they try to reject them, even nicely, and say, "Hey, I had a good time. I just don't think we have a good chemistry." And the men turn from being complimentary to, "Oh, well, you're just a fat bitch, anyways. I'm not really interested in you." You like immediately turn that switch, and so it makes sense why women would try to do that. But as far as like current trends that are in dating, it's now the concept of, I feel like, the situationship, is just, and nobody really wants to date now. Nobody wants to actually be in a relationship. I think there's also a tendency of people who are afraid of commitment to just say that they're poly. I think there's plenty of valid poly relationships out there, but I think it's become a trend now. And it's just easier just to be poly, and then we can just do whatever we want. They don't understand that actually takes more commitment, more communication is exponentially more difficult because now you're working with different types of personality, different people, etc. But people kind of like, I feel like, try to jump into that so that way they don't have to actually even make a decision.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. A couple points there. So I've heard of like the trends where people are like, oh, I'm in an open relationship, and they think that means end all be
Yeah.
all. I think that, to your point, completely agreed that those boundaries are harder. Like those, like, hey, I hey, open relationship, but these are my lines. Like, hey, I need to be able to trust you. I need to be able to communicate. I need to know that you're safe. I need to, like, these are there are lines still with that. People, when they hear out
Oh
loud,
yeah.
open relationship just means an end, free for all. You can do whatever you want. Like, no, that's not fair. If that's not what their standard is, it's not yours to judge. That's their life. And I've never been one to like judge that. I know a couple people in open relationships, but they're very strict about the rules between them and their significant other. Not there to judge. If that's what makes you happy and that's what works and that's fair and that's what you've agreed upon, you're an adult. I would never judge it. But I do think, to your point, if someone uses that as an excuse to like, hey, I just want to get my rocks off and not be held accountable, that's unfair and that's shitty. Um, like, what was it? The ghosting one. You're right. You're 100% right. Where I've actually helped at the time we were just dating, my fiance now, write a text to a dude saying, hey, I'm not interested. I'm interested in this. Like, whatever, blah, blah. I'm feeling a connection
Yep.
somewhere else. I don't want to lead you on. It was the weirdest thing because she's like, hey, how would you write a text to a guy that you're not interested in while we're sitting across from each other at dinner at like our fifth date? And halfway through me helping her, I'm like, am I writing this text to me? like, I don't know if I won. I don't know what's going on here. Like, hey, just so I'm sure, is this to me? Because you can just tell me now. I don't have to write this text. He's like, no, stupid. I was like, all right, cool, bet. And I wrote what I thought as a dude I would want to hear. Hey, look, I appreciate all the time, like whatever, blah, blah. Like, it was really nice getting to know you, but you're just not feeling this dynamic. I'm kind of leaning towards someone else, which she even said, we were clear that I'm seeing other people. I'm gonna, don't want to lead you on and waste your time. He immediately turned aggressive.
Yep.
And I was like, block him. She's like, well, I'm like, block him. Fuck it. Not worth the time, not worth the energy. Do not engage. That's what he's looking for. He wants to get a reaction. Block him, move on. Fuck that dude. And it was one of the nicest. I've never written a nice text like that for me. Like, I was so nice to this dude.
Yeah, it's a weird situation, but and that's the thing is that is the answer is to block them because once you've said your part, there's no other communication to be had at that point. What it is rejection sucks. It sucks to be rejected, but you also have to be an adult about it. And there's a lot of men out there that have very little like emotional intelligence in that sense. They lash out and get defensive instead of taking a breath and just thinking about it and saying and actually being appreciative that she didn't just disappear on them. That like that she actually said, "Hey, I liked you. Just I'm not feeling that connection," and be aware of that. It's lack of emotional intelligence, and also there's a lot of men who it's an entitlement. They
Yeah.
think I was nice to you. I like you. I find you attractive. I bought you drinks or I bought you dinner. Like, how can you not like that? They don't understand that there has to be a mutual attraction and mutual chemistry, and they don't understand that it's a two-way street. And that's which just blows my mind.
It's like that. There's a joke online. It's like that punch card. I was nice to you 5 times. I deserve this.
Yeah, yes,
It's like,
exactly. Yeah,
what the fuck is wrong with you? Look,
yeah,
for anyone listening at home who might have a problem with what I'm saying, you can go fuck yourself. As a big brother and as a guy who's like, I grew up in a Dominican household surrounded with women. I've never, I never liked it whenever dudes were disrespectful to anyone. I don't think you should be disrespectful to anyone
right,
unless they're a piece of shit to you.
right,
A
right.
good amount of times, I'm not the one who's starting the problems. I will end it. I don't want to start the problems. I want to have fun, drink, and let's fucking eat, do whatever we got to do. I don't want problems. But when people are just disrespectful because they don't want to accept rejection, it's just so fucking infuriating. Like, I don't get it. I've
Yeah.
never gotten it, but I guess that's not my place to get it. Like, that's not my frame of
No,
mind.
no. But it helps you also realize that when women sometimes decide to ghost somebody because they're too worried about it, you're like, it
Yeah.
kind of makes sense.
Oh yeah, yeah, no, definitely. I think I've had a lot because I have a lot of homegirls, and you when you met me was around a bunch of my homegirls.
Yeah.
But everyone's like, yeah, G, can you walk me to the car? And there was always like originally, like when I was like younger, I didn't think about the fact that like they think their world is very different than mine.
Right.
I'm a big Hispanic dude. No one's gonna pick me up and toss me in a vehicle because
Yeah.
it's not happening. And
Yeah.
two, I'm never worried about that happening. A Childish Gambino or Donald Glover made the joke. It's like I've never thought about the fact that they're scared of those interactions and how that negatively could impact them. It's like, oh shit, yeah, I got you all day. So I just went. I've always go gorilla big brother. Like I got you all day. You tell me what you need to do. But yeah, some of those like trends have gotten so prominently just out there, and people just expect it. There are some like breadcrumbing I hate. I think leading someone on so you can keep getting that little dopamine hit of attention is fucking shitty.
Yep. Yeah, it is.
Um, what was it? Zombieing. That's one of the ones I read where it's like you lose your relationship and you immediately try to rekindle an old relationship because you need that attention.
Right.
That's shitty.
Well, now I think they're renaming things. I mean, that's just called
That's rebound.
rebounding.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
rebound.
yeah. It's a yeah.
And
So
when I read it, I was like zombieing. I was like, I've heard of that, but that's not
yeah.
what I've heard of it as. And there was a couple. Oh, the one I thought was really silly was not catfishing, kitten fishing,
Yes.
where you misrepresent who you are online.
Uh-huh.
And then when people fall in love with you, it's like, surprise, motherfucker, I'm toxic. I got none of
Right,
the
right.
things I said.
Yeah, yeah, it's a different way, yeah, because you are actually planning on eventually meeting them. You're trying to like, yeah, it's a weird thing. Just I don't understand people's inability just to be themselves and be transparent and just realize that if you are yourself, if you don't hide things
Yeah.
and you could just be you, then people are going to like you for you. Not everybody is, but the right person who likes you for you will like you. And that's the person you want. You don't want somebody that's all built on deception. You don't want somebody where you had to trick them into liking you. That's never going to be a healthy relationship.
I don't want to be like, oh, I'm a vegan too. And then when we're date 3, I ordered steak. Like,
Right, right.
I can't lie to you anymore. What? like, just miss. So that's when I read that was who is just straight up lying. And then I was like, oh yeah, this is a fuck. I just don't think like this. I don't
Yeah.
like, so these trends always surprise me. And I'm not saying like, oh my God, I'm the best dater in the world, but some of these things just seem awful.
Yeah. No, they are. They
So
are. They
exciting.
really are.
But
Some of them don't happen as much as others, but it's like when Cosmo or some website decides they need to write like we need a new dating article. Let's come up with 10 more terms that people do. And so sometimes what they're seeing is like you're going to see like dating in like a big city like New York or Los Angeles
yeah,
is going to happen more frequently than in smaller towns and in different environments where you don't have literally a million people there, like and so that does make a difference with it as well.
do you find it that so just out of curiosity. So I have friends that live in New York City. I'm from New York City, and they tell me that there's always a constant trouble dating, and it's be and when I've spoken to them, when we really have a real conversation, it's one of my friends. She says that it's almost like the fear of missing out because there's so many people around her. Every date, like it feels almost like too much instant gratification, where this person could be an 8.5 out of 10 of what I'm looking for, but there might be that 9.5 because there's so many options. Like that, there might be someone out there that the abundance of opportunity might be negatively impacting dating for her. Is Do you see that
Interesting.
in your cities?
I mean, I could kind of see that to a degree that it is like, when I come to a new town and I get on Bumble and all of a sudden I have 30 new matches from people, then it's like, oh, there's so much attention. But when I actually sit down and think about it too, a lot of it is understanding the fact that I'm not looking for someone who's like a 9 out of 10. I try not to assign numbers to that. I'm looking for someone that
Yeah,
I get along well with, who's independent and able, living their own life, that isn't going to cling, but also is not going to expect me to cling either. That wants to be an adult, an independent, living individual, who elevates my life to some degree more than it already is.
of course.
And with this understanding that there is no such thing as a soulmate, that in any given environment, there might be hundreds, if not thousands of people you are very compatible with, you could have a great life with. And so if you start realizing that and keeping that in mind, then you have to stop thinking about, is the next one going to be slightly better than the other one? Because if you've got someone who's already elevates your life, then that's the person you should focus on.
Yeah, I agree. I like how you put that. Well, when we were having the conversation, it sucks because when I visited out there, you know, it was an awkward situation. We were sitting at a bar, we were talking, and she was telling me about her dating life and being single. And she's like, "Oh, I'm looking for what you and Rosanna have." Like, it took work, bro. Like this wasn't like an overnight success story. Like there were
Yeah.
moments. But she started crying at the bar, and people thought I made her cry. I was like, "This is not what
Oh,
you think it is. This is not what you think it is. I am a homie giving dating advice." Because even the bartender, she walked over, she's like, "Is he bothering you?" I was like, "I didn't do nothing." Like she's just venting. She had even corrected. I was like, "No, no, he's a friend." But I told her, I was like, "Look, you're always worried about finding the perfect situation, but it's every once in like you're not gonna find perfect. You're like
yeah.
these that's not what happens. These storybook, like, this is how we ended up, and this is great, and on the outside, that took effort.
Yeah.
That took someone that you found a match, you found someone you're willing to put effort in. You're hoping to find like the finished product that someone else put all the effort in. Whether it's, hey, I'm looking for this status symbol, or I'm looking for this income, or I'm looking for these looks, or I'm looking for, hey, no children, hey, no baggage, hey, no ex, so no divorcees or some divorcees or anything. Bro, you can't, if you find someone and you want to work at it, you got to work at it.
Yeah.
It's not their fault that things didn't go their way. Like,
Right. Right.
they or could be, we don't know, but we're here now. This is the past. Like you can't expect that. But it was an interesting conversation where she just kept defaulting to the city being so high paced and competitive that she always felt like anytime she thought about dating one person, someone else stumbled upon. And I was like, that's it. You have to look at you. But I wondered how often that became a factor when you think about dating profiles. It's just easy swipe right, swipe left, fast, quick and easy matches or not matches. And then I don't know, do you feel like that plays a factor too?
Yeah, it does. It does. It's playing around. It's a tool that just gets you to, keep looking and keep looking. And it's supposed to, it's designed to do that. It's designed to be addicting as well. I think that's when your own personal boundaries and your own personal strengths come into effect. Like that sounds like her saying that sounds like her problem. Like that sounds like she's sabotaging herself because she isn't really ready to commit. When she's ready to commit, she'll know. And she has to find somebody who she also trusts is going to have the same mentality. And so that's part of it. But you have to set your own boundaries. You can't expect the world or Tinder or other people to set boundaries for you. You have to be like, okay, I'm going to go on this date and I'm going to not get on the apps until I decide I want to. And if you can't do that, then well, maybe you're not ready to commit to somebody.
That's fair. Yeah, it's just, I thought it was an interesting concept when she said, there's always just other fish in the sea. You should chill.
Yeah.
Like maybe you need to figure out who you want to be first. Like if this is what you're running into, that every 2 minutes someone else is tapping into something else you want. Are you sure this is the time for you to start dating?
Yeah.
And I think that's what made her cry. And I had to leave right after. I was like, oh, I feel like such a piece of shit. I
I
have
mean,
to go anywhere.
but you think about it, and so some ways it sounds like a negative. But then let's look at like the older generations, where they would meet, in school or something like that. They'd go on one date. They'd court each other, or he would court her. Then they would end up, getting married. He'd go to war. He'd like get her pregnant, go to war, come back, have a couple more kids, and they would stay together till they're 90. Sounds like beautiful. Oh, it's such a beautiful love story. But then you look at the reality of it. The women weren't allowed to buy homes or have bank accounts or anything. They weren't allowed to divorce. And so in a lot of cases, they were toxic relationships. They
Yeah.
were trapped in a bad relationship and they basically had to make the most of it. But having the choice for women to be able to walk away and say, this isn't working for me is a positive in the long run.
Oh, yeah. 100%.
Yeah, and then when a woman decides she wants to be with someone, then she'll find somebody that she wants to be with, and so yeah, it's worked out in the benefit. But it does. People sometimes look at the old days. I wish we had like you'll see those stupid memes and the old. Wish when our grandparents blah blah blah. Yeah, your grandparent, your grandma hated your grandpa by the time that like she
Yeah.
danced on his fucking grave, because he was abusive and he cheated on her all the time and stuff like that.
You ever wonder why
So
your uncle looks different than your dad?
that's right. Yeah, exactly.
Like,
Yeah, he had a secret. He had a whole secret family. Like it's amazing.
man, we could talk off air. No, like I will be the first to like I'll use myself as an example. Like when I remember, um, you probably met me during this time. I was a whore. I just did what I wanted. I called myself a whore, but I never was dishonest. I always told people what I was like, hey, look, I'm not
Yeah, yeah.
serious. I want to have fun. I want to date. If you don't want to date me, that's fine. We could all be friends, and I will never hit on you. If we say this, we're just friends. No, from here on out, we will never cross that line. You're like, oh, that's weird. I was like, no, 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 I'm very honest. I'm not trying to waste your time. I'm not trying to waste my time. And it wasn't until I was very much ready in a headspace. Like I met women that was easily are now married, have kids, they have a happy family, great human beings. I wasn't that person. I wasn't right
Yeah.
for that. And when I made that decision and worked on myself and decided this is what I want to do, my fiance just moseyed on with her big butt and just say, hey, it's like, oh shit, here I am. I'm stuck now. She knows I love her.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's understanding what you are, who you are, what you want, and being able to like not compromise is going gives you will go a long way. Give you a lot of grace with what you want to do. But you are more than just a dating podcast. Like
Yes.
you are a person that apparently never fucking sleeps, because when you look at your profile and your background and your careers and the jobs and the travel, I wonder if you just run on Adderall and caffeine, because you do it all, man. Like, let's talk a little bit about your other ventures. You did stand-up comedy,
Yeah.
you did photography. Let's talk about stand-up comedy for a little bit, because I think
Sure.
it could lead into something later on for dating again. But go on.
Yeah. I mean, it's I've been doing it now for 14 years. I think last week was my 14-year anniversary doing stand up. And I've toured the country doing it. I've started. I actually performed in Iceland, which was great. Yeah,
Performing in Iceland?
yeah, yeah.
They flew you out? Like,
No, I was gonna go over there anyways. I decided to see if I could book a couple shows while I was there, and I ended up booking a couple shows. It was great. And then here in Tulsa, I've been doing comedy since I moved here. When I was on the road, so I was on the road for a couple of years, and like living in a new place every month,
mhm.
and I was staying across the country in Airbnbs and stuff, and that was hard to just keep up with comedy because I don't know the open mics of every little town and stuff like that. But once I got here in Tulsa, and I've been here for a little time, I was able to get involved in the comedy scene, and I've been performing a lot here, and it's been great. I love there's no better feeling in the world than being on stage and having 1,000 people like just laugh and be at your basically beck and call for that 45 minutes or an hour. And it's one of those things that I think everybody should try comedy at least once, like at least try go to an open mic, write 5 minutes, just so you know how hard it actually is.
Mm.
And if you don't find it hard, then maybe you should actually start thinking about stand up because I think everybody pretty much finds it difficult unless they're a natural.
That is, yeah, I don't think if I could be in front of a stage, I could be funny here at my house. But
That's
if
why I think everybody should try it. Try writing 5 minutes of material and getting on a stage where strangers are staring at you and trying to make them laugh. And then it'll give people a whole new appreciation of when they go to a comedy show of what that comedian up there has done to get up there.
That's fucking scary, huh? Like seeing those thousands of people. How, like, when your first show versus like, how was that? How was the first show like? Were you freaking out? Or you were like, hey, I'm fine?
I no, I would say I got nervous the first time I ever did open mic. I got nervous maybe the first time I was in a paid show, just a little nervous, then. But then after that, it got to be just it was something that I was like, yeah, I'll do it anytime. I would sometimes just be in the audience watching a friend and be like, hey, you want to come up and do 5 minutes real quick? And I would just be, yeah, let me jump on stage.
Okay.
Like yeah. So like if I was at a show right now and the comedian fell out and ran out, they need somebody to take over the mic and finish the show. It'd be like a piece of cake for me, no matter what. Like it'd be an easy thing to do. So there's not really nervousness. I would say, yeah, the largest crowd I had was I think was 1,000 people almost,
Oh,
and that was a little nerve wracking at first. But then once I realized all I could really see are the people right in the front, then it doesn't matter. You look at you don't even you're not even really looking at the people anyways. You pretend like you're making eye contact with them, but you're really not.
mhm.
So
Where was
and it
that
was just
show at?
it was in Palm Beach at the Improv there.
Oh shit, really? How long
Yeah,
ago was that?
years ago. That was a long time ago.
Okay. And with that stand-up comedy, is that something you're still trying to rekindle and make sure that you're doing consistently, or is it just like,
Oh yeah, I've had shows every week this year so far.
yeah, really?
At least yeah, during pretty much every weekend I've got something.
Hell yeah.
Much smaller crowds so far, but I don't really care. Like the thing is, if it's a packed house, like I was with Bobcat Goldthwait from Police Academy.
Yes.
Yeah,
I'm old. Remember we talked about this.
yeah,
Like,
yeah. Yeah. So I worked with him back in Orlando years ago, and then he was actually here in Tulsa for a weekend. And so I decided to, or just didn't decide to. I talked to the club about opening for him because I already knew him, and so he and I got to spend the weekend together, opening doing shows here, and it was nice because the crowd was maybe I want to say in this room was maybe 150 to 200 people, maybe 250 at the most. Which is a good size for in a small room. That's great. Good laughter. People laugh. It echoes through the room. That it gives you that intimate laughter that you want. And it was great. It was amazing. And it was nice to just like, yeah, I love no matter what the size of the crowd is. If I can find somebody and make them laugh, then I enjoy it.
that's dope, man. I'm glad that you enjoy it. I'm glad that you're still doing it very often,
Oh
very
yeah.
consistently. A show a week is very fucking consistent. So you're once again, you never fucking sleep. Speaking of your creative side, one of the things that you also did, you wrote a couple of short stories and books. I know one story you wrote was based off a really bad date, give or take, or an interesting date. The one at the strip club where it ended up being in. You wrote a story about a murder.
Oh, that wasn't okay. Yes, I did. I write that. That wasn't even a short story. That turned into a whole true crime podcast, actually.
That's what it was.
Um,
But it
yes.
started with a short, wasn't it? Like
Yeah,
a
it started with me like yeah. So writing, yeah, writing wise. So I mean, I've written a couple books. Wrote a humor book. I wrote a novel, and right now I'm working
nice.
on my next novel. I'm about halfway through it. But then I also and with writing would write kind of these Twitter thread stories. And so they would like it would kind of tell a story through like 120 characters at a time, basically, or 140 characters at a time. And one of the stories, for example, when I was teaching college and my students didn't show up for class, and I wrote a whole series of tweets about that. I don't know if you remember that.
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
globally viral. Like I was being interviewed in like the news in China and Japan about it and everything. It was crazy. And then so I wrote another one about a stripper that I went on a date with, and we went to see Kevin Hart and had a great time. But then she just kind of disappeared, and I didn't see her for a bit. She wanted to come over that night, and I was like, it's still too early. I'm gonna go out for the night. I'm gonna go downtown, so I'll drop you off at your car. And I remember that I was like, oh, I haven't heard from her in a while, and so I started looking up her information, like Googling her, see because I couldn't find anywhere social media had disappeared. And it turns out that she was in jail. And she was in jail because she and her boyfriend had allegedly murdered the manager of a strip club. She had gone to his house, and he lived in Altamont. He lived in those apartments behind the ale house.
Oh
Um,
shit. Yeah.
yeah, the nice ones. The nice ones over there. The Uptown Altamont, that's what it's called.
The one near the hospital, right next to Crane's Roost.
Yeah,
That.
near Crazy Roost, but the really nice ones that are right behind like the Marshalls there, that really nice
Oh,
like
okay, okay, okay.
those
Yeah.
really nice ones. They're really like high end apartments. He um he had fallen from his fifth story balcony to his death, and they thought it was a suicide. But then when they were doing the post mortem, they found a gunshot wound in his leg.
Oh,
So then they investigated and they found that she and the boyfriend were there. And so then they arrested both of them for murder. So she was on trial for murder and then got convicted and got 2 life sentences. And so I was like, that's just crazy. So I wrote this whole short story on Twitter about this and everything. Well, it went viral. And as a result of it going viral, I got an email from a random person who had written an entire book about this girl. Her name was Mandy, about Mandy. And he had basically used to have sex with her when she was a prostitute in Miami, when she was, and I think underage. He doesn't say that explicitly, but the math doesn't math properly.
Yeah.
And he writes about her in this really creepy way and everything. But he has this whole book, 250-page book, that he's written as a PDF about her. And I was like, I have to do something with this. This is insane. This is absolutely the most insane thing I've ever received in my life. So I started doing a podcast where I would read his book chapter by chapter, do like a voiceover,
Mhm.
and then I would do commentary. And I started off with commentary with one of the people who worked at the strip club. It was the bartender, one of my close friends, Lisa. And then it moved to my co-host was just a fan who was a friend of mine. And then most recently was her sister. Her sister reached out and wanted to be on the podcast. And
Oh.
her sister had all the backup details and stuff like that. And so then we started getting into it. Unfortunately, that's about the time that I started taking hit the road. So we had the podcast. It was called Angel at the Starlight Motel.
Mm.
Marie Claire magazine called it the number one true crime podcast of like 2020 or 2019 or something. Yeah, when I first started. And we did that, and then I had to take a break, and I haven't gone back to it. I left people hanging. Like I feel bad. We still need to go back to it.
What year did you
Um,
stop?
that stopped like a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. So it's not
Adam,
like two people wait 2 years. I know. I have too many things to do. I don't sleep. What are you talking about? I get so much. But yeah, so
get
this
off
was
this
great.
episode. Go. You
Well, we
go.
started
Keep
talking
going
about
there.
her, like she's in her trial and how she got convicted and how it might actually be a wrongful conviction. And actually, as we started getting in the evidence with her sister, it turns out the evidence didn't exist. There is no evidence. Like she was convicted on a jailhouse confession, like a jailhouse snitch, who got a reduced sentence for saying that Mandy said she did it, and that was the extent of that's the extent of their evidence. And
Wait,
so,
what?
like, yeah, they don't actually have any evidence that any of this other than like that she did this or anything. And so it's actually looks like it's a huge miscarriage of justice and all of this. And so it's been a thing. And then I feel bad that I left everybody hanging. And so at some point I need to go back to it with her sister. We need to do at least a recap, like a final recap episode or something.
If you need someone to just be there listening to be like, what? And what? And what? Call me. I will be
Yeah,
there.
yeah, yeah. There's I would say 40 episodes now right now like of the Angel at the Starlight Motel that are out there and still available. Yeah,
Oh shit. Well, we're gonna have to catch up and make sure that I'm
yeah.
up to date before you have me on there, just like a gasping, like, like
Right, right.
that is wild. And that is still probably not your worst first date. Like,
Yeah, you think so. No, and the thing is, the date itself was fine. It was just I was thinking about later, like
she also had a boyfriend at the time.
I thought, yeah, that's true. That's true. It's weird. I don't know that I've had that many actual bad dates and first dates, and the reason is that I'm very good at reading people. I have a good intuition, but I also will take the time to screen people because my time is valuable, and I'm not going to go out and waste 2 or 3 hours with somebody unless I think that they're already worth my time.
Is that why you
And
took
so
so long to
there,
respond to this podcast? Is that why?
huh?
Is that why it took you so long to respond to my
That's right. Exactly. No, but no, it's something. So I will take some time to talk to somebody and really try to see are there red flags or not even just red flags, just incompatibility. And before I actually am willing to schedule a date, and so I don't rush to the dates. And so as a result, I've been really lucky where even dates that haven't that nothing's come from them, they weren't bad. They were just not compatible. Like we met up, we're like, okay, great, you're cool, but not really my type of cool, and that was really it.
Yeah, it's no wrong with making friends. So along the lines of what we were talking earlier about your creative side and writing, you just breeze by the two books. Like I'm like, hey, what are the titles? And you just kept going. So bring us back to that. What were the books? One was like interviews with dead
Celebrities.
Celebrities. What brought that up? What was the inspiration for that?
So I used to be a blogger back in the day when that was the thing to do. That's how I built my audience initially. As I had a very popular blog. It was all humor and personal stories, but I wrote every day of the week, and so I was always looking for new content. And at some point, I wrote a fake interview with actually Kaylee Anthony, who was Casey Anthony's dead daughter. Yeah. So I wrote a fake interview with her where she was like, she did, my mom did it, right? Why is nobody saying that? Like it was basically her, this kid telling, I'm interviewing this kid about her or about her mom being a killer. And it got really popular. And so I was like, oh, that's a good topic for me to write when I'm looking for stuff. So I started writing when celebrities would die. I would do a fake interview with them, and I compiled like 30 or 40 over the time. And I was like, I feel like I should put these into a book. So then I went and wrote another 30 or 40 that weren't ever published,
Mhm.
and then put them all together. And so like I picked like older celebrities that had died and stuff like that. So because all I had written were when they died. Like at that time, I wrote the next day. I wrote an interview with them, and so I did that, and it was a funny little book people enjoyed. Probably it's been a long time since I think I wrote it in 2000 like 11 or 12. Like I feel like it was a while, maybe 13.
It was a while ago.
It was a while ago. But I'm also like I have not revisited it in a while. I'm gonna guess that there's probably a couple things that I wouldn't say now that might be a little like language has shifted. There's certain I feel like there's probably a few problematic sections in some of those now, but that's all right.
To be fair, like we talk, everyone talks about that in comedy and just culture and music, everything, things that were culturally. Come on, Tropic Thunder with Robert Downey Jr. being blackface would probably not have been as acceptable. Any
I think actually it still would be fine. I think that's one thing that I think still would
Tropic
because
Thunder,
that was
because he was making poking fun at someone doing
because
something.
that was the joke was that
Yeah.
he was doing this, not he wasn't doing it to as an actual character. But like a show like the old movie Soul Man, um,
Oh yeah.
that could never happen because that was him actually putting on blackface to play someone who's black, and so yeah, that would.
Who was the dude from Adam Carolla and
Jimmy Kimmel.
Jimmy Kimmel? They did a where he was playing Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and put on blackface.
Yeah.
That might not be acceptable.
That wouldn't be, yeah, and recently said he's since said, yeah, that probably was not a good idea.
Yeah,
So, yeah, I've had jokes that I was like, I did that I thought were funny, and now I'm like, oh, I wouldn't do that now. It's not a joke that I think is funny now.
yeah. I mean, times change. Things are
Yeah.
there. Every single day, I learn a little bit more about the history of terms and phrases that I thought were very acceptable. I was like, oh, that has some really fucked up racist history behind that. I'm not saying that shit anymore.
Well,
Uh,
I think that's part of it is it's you being a good person is sometimes being is willing to understand that things evolve and change, and being okay to evolve and change with them, and not get defensive
mhm,
and just be like, yeah, sometimes we fuck up, but it's about being willing to like, hey, that was fucked up. I'm not going to do that again. It's
mhm.
when people like double down on it and decide that like they're just going to become like these, oh yeah, well, it's all woke or whatever bullshit they want to say, like stuff like that's just like, no, you're just being an asshole. Like now you've decided you don't want to grow with the rest of society. You just want to be an asshole.
I had that conversation with a friend. I was like, look, I'm not telling you like you can't curse, say some shit, but if I'm telling you what you said was rude and out of pocket, and you continue, you're no longer saying it to the demographic and to the world. I'm telling you personally,
Yeah.
stop. So if that's all you want to hear from someone specifically, your friend telling you stop, focus on that. And we'll talk about the bigger problem later on. And like, oh, well, you could either stop or you're not. Like I've had to be like I have a very defensive aggression. Like if my friends of everything, you say
Yeah.
something that's rude or like you come at a homie that I'm like, hey, that's not the one. We don't
Yeah.
do that here. We don't do that around me. You can ask a lot of my friends. I'm like, I'm the first motherfucker that will be like, what did you say? Like, do you mind
Yeah.
repeating that to me? But all that, but it's cool. I do appreciate it. I think that's interesting that you wrote that so far back. You haven't revisited the project. What was the other book?
Oh, it was back in 2017. I wrote a supernatural thriller called #Me Too, a supernatural thriller. It's about a world where magic is app based, like instead of your cell phones or whatever, you can just buy a wand. It's a phone. You can download magic spells on it, and then press a button and do a spell. And there's a black market of spells called #Me Too, and it allows women to turn men into women for as long as they'd like, so that men can understand what it's like to be a woman.
That is an
And then
interesting ass concept.
there's a series of murders around the app that are related to the app, and so someone's investigating the murders basically.
That is
So
wild.
yeah,
When did
I
that
wrote
one?
that. I wrote that under a pen name, under not under, but it's on my website. I have it under my publications on my website.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay. Look, when I looked at Amazon, I didn't see that one.
yeah, it's there. Yeah, as I said, if you look at my name, it's not going to show up
That's
because it's under a pen name. That's why. Yeah.
that was wild. That's an interesting concept. So what because we're running a little low. I like what inspired that one? It was just trying to be
I mean,
like, are you
honestly,
into, yeah, go ahead.
I have 14 projects on a list of books I want to write and things I want to create. and they're all just from. Usually, I have very vivid dreams, and sometimes like this book was a full dream. It just came to me the whole. I dreamt it. I woke up. I was like, oh, this is a cool concept, and I realized I had the beginning, middle, and end already in my mind. So I wrote some notes about it and a quick outline, and then I was like, all right, I want to write this, and so I wrote it, and then so since then I've got about, like I said, about 14 projects right now. Was when I finish this book, it'll be the next project, the next project, the next project. So I'm working on my current one now.
Okay, what's the current one about?
Current one's a young adult novel.
If we could get,
Oh, I don't mind. It's a young adult novel, and it's about a kid who gets asked to bring in the homeroom after spring break, something that he helped out on. He's in high school, and he brings in this safety vest that his uncle invented, and he didn't realize it's a lot more than that. But while he's showing it off in class, there's a school shooting, and they go into lockdown, and the safety vest goes off, and it's much more than a safety vest. It actually ends up being a time machine, and it accidentally transports the shooter, and another student back in time to like World War I Belgium, and they have to learn to work together and like trust each other in order to figure out how to make it home alive because they're in the middle of a war zone and try to survive.
that is a that's a lot.
A lot.
That's a lot going on. Okay, that was a vivid dream too.
Oh yeah, that one was kind of like total dream. Yeah.
Adam, I have questions. About
I,
your
I
type of
I'm
dream.
very like, I'm very active imagination, and so when I sleep, my brain just continues to work. It's really what it is.
That is an interesting thing, man. I like the idea. I like the fact that you write them down and actually put something to it.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
a lot of people's like, oh, I should write down my dreams and do something. And hell, I'll be the first to tell you my creative side. I write very often, but there are books somewhere in a corner. There's just little notebooks that lay around. So whenever I have a random thought, but the fact that you actually took that idea, I'm writing down my dreams and make a fucking book of it. Brilliant. I commend you on that.
Yeah, yeah. I'm like this book. I said the book's about halfway done. I'm really excited about it. I can't wait to actually be able to get it out there and share it with the world. It's going to be part of a three part, three books that I can predict. So
3 books.
yeah, it's because young adult novel. It kind of feels like it should have a trilogy. Like it feels like it's just one of those things. But as I was writing it and outlining it, I realized that it made sense to have three different, like three chapters before it's a full story.
Okay.
Like three big chapters.
That's awesome, man. I like the planning process. Yeah, you need to sleep more often. 'Cause how the fuck you're doing this? Um, so one of the things that we talked about early on, man, because still the creative side, I really want to talk about this because you brought up the story while we weren't recording, was that you are an avid photographer
Yeah,
outside of your viral bacon picture,
right.
which is I'm sure. How big did that picture get? For those listening at home, Adam, can you?
Yes, yeah. So when I was in Florida, I got a bathtub for backyard photo shoots, and but I didn't want to ask my models to do anything if I wasn't willing to try it out first. And I decided I was like, I need to do something, but I need to do something crazy that nobody's ever done before. So I went to the restaurant supply store and bought out their entire supply of bacon, which was 1,000 pieces,
How
and
much was it?
it was like I think it was like 300 or 400 bucks. It was not cheap. And then I sketched out the shots that I wanted, and then I got into the bathtub, stripped down, and got in the bathtub, and did like a bacon boudoir photo shoot. It was designed to kind of parody the women in milk baths, where they're like floating in milk with the flowers. It
Yeah,
was like
or
that,
sphygmos, depending who you're asking.
except with bacon. And it was and so it got very popular. I don't know how far it reached, but it reached it was very far, very popular.
Okay.
And people still recognize it and everything too. So yeah, that was the bacon photo.
Yeah, and that became also part of like your background during your TikToks and IGs, which I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of disappointed you didn't have it in the background of this.
I
Like
know. I'm sorry. Yes, I thought about that.
I was like,
But
where's the big the whole time I'm like,
yeah,
where's the bacon picture?
where's the bigger picture? I know. Yeah, I know. Yeah. Then in TikTok, it became a whole other thing because it was behind me when I was doing TikToks, and I didn't realize I wasn't doing. I was just doing TikToks, and someone kept saying, "What are you bathing in that photo?" So in the comments on my TikTok, I'd be like, "Oh, it's bacon," and someone said, "You should just like preemptively answer the question after your videos." So I would do the video, and I'd be like, "Oh, and this is bacon," and I would just point at it and say that. And it became such a slogan by accident that when I was doing a TikTok somewhere else, everybody would comment, and this is bacon. So then it just became like a thing. Like people have T-shirts that say, and this is bacon now,
Yeah.
as a result of it.
Oh, yeah. That's
Yeah.
for those at home. He's not exaggerating. Go look up, and this is bacon, and it'll be Adam's face and a bunch of TikToks where people were responding or not responding, reacting to your picture.
Right. Right.
There was an image of like TikTok where it's like there were like 4 women looking at your picture of you in a bathtub of bacon. It's like, what is that? I know him. That's a friend of mine. Put that picture down, young lady. Put some respect on his name. He's not a piece of meat. He's just covered in it. But
Right.
you talked about your photography and your models and these boudoir kind of really unique style. Like you've had, I don't know how to describe it because you've had like almost a grungy, cool, artistic look to some of these images. And it's always so dope. But what inspires the photography and what got you into it?
It happened by accident. It was really just because I had my house and I had, kind of, I had like strippers and bartenders that lived at my house, and that I
Very
rented
unique
rooms
name for
to.
the house too.
The Avitable Camp for Wayward Women.
There you go.
And so a lot of times they'd just be hanging out at the pool naked and stuff like that, just because sunbathing and whatever. And one of them wanted me to take photos of her one time because she wanted to send them out to a modeling thing or something like that. So I tried that, and I don't think I did a great job, but she liked them enough for that. And then someone else saw what she had posted and was like, "Oh, can you try that?" And then I started just having more fun with it, and it started kind of growing out of that. I like human figure shots, and it's not. Definitely not boudoir, because boudoir I feel like is kind of like soft and like, it's all sensual. My
Yeah.
stuff isn't really about, it's not about sex. It's it's like, but it's like a kind of the human body is a cool
Okay.
canvas to be able to do a lot of things with. And so I like stuff that shows if people have wrinkles and tattoos and piercings and whatever, like, and stretch marks. Like I don't airbrush stuff. I want it to be like this is what a human is. And so I like to try to highlight all aspects of human figures. And it just kind of grew from there, like where I started having artistic like idea, just like my books where I have like I would like, oh, I have a cool idea for a photo shoot, let me try this, and so then I would try to create it. And I've had several pieces now that have been in art shows, and one that was in a museum, which is really badass. Yeah,
Oh man,
and then
congrats.
and then here in Tulsa, actually, there's a art bar, and the owner looked at my photography. I was like, "Oh, I want you to be my artist for a month." So for September, I had 30 of my pieces hanging in there, in the place, and I sold 4 of them, which was pretty cool. And I have my back wall here is all like my art as well, as you can kind of see.
Very
So
awesome.
yeah.
That's awesome, man. And you, is this similar? Like you get an idea, a dream, and you said, I need to get a model. I need to put this image.
Or something more when I'm feeling creative. I was like, yeah. So like last night, I was talking to someone that I had to do a couple shoots with, and I was like, hey, next time it snows, I feel like we should do something. She's like, yeah, because her hair was blue, and I was like, I want to do something where you're like your blue hair in the snow and the cold, like it'd be cool. And so yesterday it snowed a lot and it was freezing, and so I was like, are you ready to do it? So she was a trooper. So we went out in the snow. We took some cool shots of her like in a blue dress with the snow and like looking like a winter witch and stuff. But then went out we were driving through downtown Tulsa, and it was very empty, no cars at all. There was only one bar in the entire downtown that was open. So we went there to do some shots in their back. They have a little back porch. They were having a drink, and I was like, it'd be kind of cool. And she was like, you want me to do like a shot like in my underwear? And I was like, yeah. If you would you do a shot in your underwear like in the middle of the street, so I could show all of downtown with you just being like, basically just wearing underwear. And then she's like, yeah. I was like, would you do topless and just wear your panties? And she's like, yeah, that's cool. Let's do it. And so we're in the middle of the street, and I'm making sure there's no traffic coming. She's in the car staying warm because it's 9 degrees. It's like literally freezing, below freezing. And so I'm waiting to make sure. And there's this truck starts to pull up, but then pulls in behind my car, or about behind our car on the street and on the side. And I was like, okay, they're fine. She didn't care if anybody else saw her. She wasn't worried about that. We just didn't want cars driving over us because we're in the middle of the street.
Yeah, you don't want to get hit by a car. Yeah.
So I was like, all right, come on. So then she gets out topless and just wearing panties and boots, and then goes out and poses. And I take like 3 minutes worth of photos, and then she runs back in the car. And then the guy gets out of the truck, and it's the owner of the bar, and I know him, and I'm like, hey, how's it going? He goes, hey, great. Nice snowy day, kind of dead, no traffic. I figured it'd be a great time to help my 15-year-old son learn how to drive in the snow. So let me just say that you just made his day, and he probably had one of the best days of his entire life right now because of that. And he was laughing his ass off. And I was like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry." He goes, "No, no, it's fine. He's seen plenty in his life." So, but yeah, you just made his day though.
That's a story that he's going to be on a podcast when he's 35 and he's
Well, that's the thing. I was like, I told the model, I was like, he's gonna remember that for the rest of his life. Because I know that if when I was 15, if I had seen something like that, that would be a story that I would continue to tell people over and over again. Because it's
and not
just,
a single one of his friends are going to believe him.
yeah, yeah. Well, luckily, you can just pull up my Instagram and show them.
Oh shit, that's true. That's fair
Yeah.
enough. We're going to take a quick break before we start running out. But guys, we'll be right back. I'm going to get to know Adam at the tail end of this interview. Be right back.
Sponsor of
Free and say, this is who I need, or start pulling people. Like, how does that go? Or do you just adjust to who the model is?
It usually is the idea first, and then sometimes the model, like, okay, well, I know which model will work with that. In Florida, it was easy because I had a wide variety of models to choose from, especially because like I said, because I had the strip club environment that I was part of. The strippers are great with taking photos. Like they don't care. Like they'll just be like, yeah, what do you want me to do? Like they just love it's fun. And so and it was great to showcase, how cool they were and badass and stuff like that. And I like to kind of do that. But and then I was part of the body paint community, and body paint models are all naked all the time. So they're very comfortable with like just whatever.
Yeah.
So that was nice. As I've traveled, it's a little harder because I mean I'm a guy, I'm a big imposing guy, shaved head, big beard, and it starts to be like, hey, I want to take naked pictures of you. Like there's no good way to do that.
A way to approach that without being, hey, can you follow me on Instagram? I have a question after.
Well, so that's kind of how I've had to do it is basically, I mean, like, oh, there's my Instagram. Let me know if you're interested later. Recently, I actually got cards made that had my Instagram on there, and just so I can just like if I'm like, hey, if you have any interest in like ever doing this, I think you'd be a cool look for something. Because sometimes I see people, I'm like, they would be fun to shoot. Just like I don't know what yet, but I'd be fun like just to get some lighting and shoot. And so it really kind of depends. I just love being creative in the ways that I know that I've developed skills because I can't like play a musical instrument. I can't dance. I can't do any of that stuff. Like that's not my ability. But being able to like create things that resonate with people, whether it's through my words or through photography, through the content I create, through podcasting, through writing, through comedy, like all those things, that's all what fuels me generally. And that's the thing that like gives me the best, such a, I don't know, energy to keep going.
That's commendable. That's actually awesome. Because I think we had a master distiller on. He recently, his name's Lance Winters. He said this similar stuff. He said, I can't sing, I can't dance. So what I can do is I can make you a really fucking good bottle of whiskey. What I can do is create a unique flavor profile that you haven't had anywhere else. What I can do is, that's awesome. You still were able to create something and be creative in that creation. So it's awesome that you found a niche and not niche, but you found several niches because once again, you need to fucking go to bed. You found several ways of being able to express yourself in a very fluid, unique way. To your point, a grown big dude just comes up, hey, ma'am, do you mind if getting just stand over there? Like right. Get in his bathtub in my backyard. No, that's not happening.
Yeah.
So and also able to navigate that, and that's through your communication. Obviously, you're a brilliant communicator. You've done it for a while. I do want to kind of just close out a couple of things to make sure that you get your time back, and everyone who wants to follow him, you can listen to him on all his podcasts. And I'm sure Adam will be back on at a later date so we can dig deeper. Phrasing, just like grinder joke again. One of the things that I also want to give you a lot of credit, right? You talked about personal growth and how like you knew jokes back then are no longer acceptable, and you're accepting of that. You didn't double down. There's a lot of and you're very vulnerable about it, where you share that. You tell people, hey, I wasn't the best dude back in the day. Hey, I made a fair share of mistakes, all that. Like, what has there been a mistake in a past relationship that you've worked to change, that you're like, I'm never making a mistake again? Or has there been that aha moment, like, fuck, that was my fault, or anything like that, for anyone who's like looking for dating advice and all that, and just kind of sharing your perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say that the biggest issue that I had was I mean, I got married relatively young, right out of law school. I got married to someone, and just because I was worried that I was going to be alone, we did get along well, but we were missing certain aspects of our relationship. And over the years, it started to I realized that, and instead of communicating that and talking to her and seeing if there was a way to resolve it, even though I don't think there was, I had an affair. And I think having an affair was me just because I didn't know what else to do, and I found somebody else, and I was like, oh, this is a connection that I really want. I think that, and it taught me that there's this rule, like this maxim that people say that cheaters never change, and I don't think that's necessarily true, because what that taught me was that I didn't like the guy who cheated. Like, I didn't like the fact that I did that. I didn't like the fact that I hurt her, and also hurt the spouse of the person that I cheated with, because she was married. And so it made me realize that I never want to do that again. So it actually turned my entire life around and made me realize that I wanted to be somebody who told the truth and was transparent and honest. And that honesty and transparency would make sure that I was accountable for my own actions because I wasn't going to lie about things. That was a good growth moment for me. I leaned into it a little too heavily to the point that I used it even when I was like, oh, well, at least I'm being honest, and things like that. And it wasn't always the healthiest things anyway. So then I had to, continue to grow. I think I had this point where I thought, oh, I'm done growing. Look, now I'm going to be honest all the time. And a few years later, I had a realization, no, I need to continue to work on myself. And there's always things I can do. That being honest is great. But sometimes you have to just you have to have other elements too, tact, etc.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so that was the biggest growth moment. And you might enjoy this. This is one of my bits that I do now. But
Okay.
it talks about with me dating, how like I realized that I wasn't always the best person dating. I had a one night stand one time, and as we walked into my apartment, she said, "You're not going to murder me, are you?" And I was drunk, but I said this unironically. I said, "No, but I am going to murder that pussy." And the thing is, I can't back that up. I don't have the dick game to back that up. I've never murdered a pussy in my entire life. Like I can't even like light battery that pussy. Like I will say that there was barely an attempted assault of that pussy that night. So,
Barely an attempted assault.
so yeah, so that's
Adam, that's fucking fantastic. Hey, look, we got to know where we're at in life,
that's right. That's right. Listen, yeah.
But I commend that, man. Like to your point, it's not only about being honest. And we talked about it earlier. Even with I will use my personal growth, not necessarily anyone else's, because I'm not here to. I like you said, I can't ask anyone else to be vulnerable if I'm not going to, right? So I can't
Yep.
talk to you about someone else's relationship. I don't know the interworkings, but for myself, I knew that I 100% had to very much so work on my communication and be honest with myself on what I was expecting and what I wanted and what I was willing to forgive, and also be like very good at my communication and understanding, and not just listening to fucking wait for my turn to speak, listening to understand and working on that. I was always very empathetic and understood these things, but I didn't care enough. And understanding that in myself, it's like, I know what you want, I just don't care. It's like, there's something that I have to work out. Like why don't I care? And coming to those realizations led me to the path of now a very happy relationship with a woman who I'm afraid of. I'm joking. These are all my friends are afraid of. I don't know why they're afraid of her. She's scary. I love this woman very much. And I think that it's one of those things that if I had met her at those points in my life, that even though I might have intrinsically been not intrinsically, like deep down been the exact same person, that surface level protection, that little barrier would never have, or those flaws would never have let that work.
Yeah.
To your point, growth is everything, and making sure that you're addressing and being there. For anyone who tuned in for like whiskey and just fucking around, sorry, this has been, you should get a therapist podcast. Like we'll talk about drinks. I promise you. I'll throw it in the bonus features. You'll be fine. And we'll put those shots and we'll put those things and what's the funniest shot that you've ever given a friend in the show notes. But definitely a lot of fun hanging out with you, Adam.
Yeah.
I would love to have you back on. I know we kind of had a specific time spot. Want to make sure I'm respectful of your time. Any, closing words, any pieces of advice to anyone out there, and plug away everything you're working on.
The only advice I ever have to give people is to learn how to be happy on your own. That the best you can possibly be is not when you're trying to impress anybody else, but when you are satisfied by yourself, and when you're doing things that make you happy, that don't harm other people, that make you a whole person, and you don't need somebody desperately. So you're not desperate for like anybody. If you can be happy alone and single, then you can be happy as a partnered person. You can be happy the rest of your life. So that should be your focus no matter what. As far as where to find me, I've got, Avitable.com, which is just people. It's so hard. People never know how to spell it, but it's AVI table. Avitable.com. It's pretty easy, right? AVI and the word table.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Avitable.com is where I have at least my books listed, if you're interested there in my publication section. But I'm on Instagram at Avitable, and Threads, and I'm still on the hellhole that is Twitter. I refuse to call it X. I still call it Twitter. I'm also on like things like Blue Sky is Avitable as well.
I love that you're doing the same thing as I am. I was like, I'm not calling it that.
Oh yeah, no, fuck that. Fuck that.
Sorry.
Yeah. And the only place I'm not Avitable is on TikTok, and that's just because I created an account originally under Avitable and then couldn't remember how to log into it. So now I'm Adam Avitable on TikTok is my actual TikTok account.
Uh, you called me old earlier and you forgot your password.
I know. Well, so whenever there's a new social media account, I always jump to it and create an account with Avitable so that like nobody else can get it. Because my brother and I have relatives now that are old enough to want to use Avitable as their, but like I've always been the sole Avitable online. So I did that, and then I never used TikTok. So when I eventually went back to use it, I was like, oh, I don't know how to log back into this.
Like, I don't even know what fucking thing I
Yeah.
used, like recreate my password or whatever it's called. But
Oh yeah, and you can find Dating Kind of Sucks, and on any podcast app. We're on YouTube as well, and
kinda.
also
For those listening,
yeah,
it's kinda, not kind of, kinda.
yeah, kinda, yeah. And then the Facebook, there's a Facebook group for the right type of people, which means that if you're people who want to be supportive and progressive and all of that, it's facebook.com/group/DKS podcast.
Awesome. And you have that other podcast that we're going to go revisit.
Yes, it's called Angel at the Starlight Motel.
Perfect. All right. Awesome, man. Well, thanks again for coming on the show. I definitely want to have you back on because I feel like there's a bunch of people yelling at the radio right now or wherever you're listening to this who want to ask you so much more in-depth questions like how'd you end up in a household full of strippers? What ended up in a body painting community and the stripper community? Why you've traveled all across the United States?
Yeah, there's a lot. Yeah, it's true. I didn't even get into that at all. There's so much. Yeah, that's crazy.
There's a ton of things. So definitely something, if you're interested, we'll have you back on and we'll get
absolutely
more. And by then I'll give you a recipe so you can drink with us and enjoy with us and get really litty.
Sounds good.
Guys, for anyone who is enjoying the show, like, subscribe, Bourbon and BS, but it's going, so we might go through a slight rebrand for those who are day ones. I want to make sure that the curse words don't keep us out of the algorithms and making sure that we keep popping up the show. So you might see Bourbon and BS or something new, but you'll understand it when it happens. We will always be Bourbon and Bullshitters at our core, but it's Bourbon_and_BS on Instagram and all socials. Click like, subscribe, share, and give us a 5-star review because it helps. It does. Believe it or not, you can just say 5 stars. He made me do this. I don't fucking care. Just put it on there. I appreciate you guys. And of course, if you want bonus features and behind the scenes of all of our episodes, make sure you are a Patreon. We are dropping whiskey minutes or interesting stories or drinking stories. We have a feature called This Round's on You, where people will give us a fun or interesting drinking story or memory that we're going to feature on the show. So that's going to be coming up in the next couple of months. So please, if you are interested in, lending some of your stories to us, let us know and we'll make sure we feature it. All right,
okay, I've got a good drinking story I can tell you about where I almost got a fight with Joey Fatone. So maybe I'll share that.
All right, guys, we got to go. That's going to be on the Patreon. Bye, guys.